Get your goals straight and continue to practice every day. And if you're not succeeding, then make your goals slightly smaller.
Create an affirmation that you repeat over and over to yourself.
We have 5 senses: sight, smell, touch, taste, and hearing.
I'm David. Welcome to Wise Vibes. It is easier to prevent bad habits than it is to break bad habits. It's a quote by Benjamin Franklin. Almost like with anything in life, it's important to be more proactive and prevent something bad from happening than it is to try to fix that bad thing because it may be too late. In this video, I'm going to share with you how to break bad habits. 4 different speakers who have brilliant minds. Starting off with number 1, Set Proper Goals by Jordan Peterson.
Get your goals straight and continue to practice every day. And if you're not succeeding, then make your goals slightly smaller. You want to make your goals large enough so that they challenge you, but small enough so that you have a reasonable probability of succeeding at them on a day-to-day basis. And then you have to also understand that if you fail on a given day, like let's say you're trying to quit smoking and you quit for 2 weeks, and then you have a cigarette and you think, oh my God, now I've screwed it up. I'm not quitting anymore. You smoke a whole pack of cigarettes. It's like, well, there's a couple of mistakes there. And one is, well, just because you had a cigarette doesn't mean you failed. It just means that you had a cigarette. You can start stopping again the next day. And the fact that you had 1 cigarette in the last 2 weeks is a hell of a lot better than the 2 weeks that you had before that. And so you've got to be realistically humble. You've got to be ambitious enough in your goals so that you're pursuing something that you regard as truly meaningful and worthwhile. And maybe you can judge that to some degree if you think about someone you love attempting the same thing and think about how you would feel if they managed it. And if you would feel good, then that's probably a good, what would you say? That would be a good evaluation strategy to use on yourself. So you want your goals to be of sufficient nobility so that you can live with yourself properly if you're pursuing them, but you want them to be small enough so that you have a reasonable probability of implementing them.
Number 2, Use Affirmations by Brian Tracy.
Create an affirmation that you repeat over and over to yourself. This repetition dramatically increases the speed at which you develop the new habit. For example, you can say something like, I get up and get going immediately at 6 a.m. each morning. Repeat these words the last thing before you fall asleep. In most cases, you will automatically wake up minutes before the alarm clock goes off at 6 a.m., and soon you will need no alarm clock at all.
And if you're appreciating all the wisdom so far, hit the like button down below and subscribe for more videos like this. Next up is Optimize Your Environment by Matt Davila.
Let's say that you wanted to build a better, I'll give you an example of breaking a good or building a good habit and breaking a bad one. So one of the laws is to make it obvious. And this largely comes down to like what we're exposed to each day. And minimalism and simplicity plays a big role in this. In the book, I call it environment design. That's basically the strategy. So for a long time, I realized that I brushed my teeth twice a day, but I didn't floss consistently. And when I looked at that habit, one of the reasons that I wasn't flossing consistently is because the floss was hidden in the drawer in the bathroom. So I just wouldn't see it, like I wouldn't open up the drawer and remember. So I bought a little bowl and got some of the pre-made flossers and put them in the bowl and placed it right next to my toothbrush. So now I brush my teeth, put the toothbrush down, pick the flosser up, it's right there. Just that one little environment design change is pretty much all I needed to do to build the habit of flossing every day. On the other side, let's say, a lot of people feel like they spend too much time watching TV or playing video games or just looking at a screen. But if you walk into pretty much any living room, where do all the couches and chairs face? They all face the television. So it's like, what is that room designed to get you to do? It's designed to get you to watch TV. So there are a variety of levels to this. You could, for example, take the remote and take it off of the coffee table and put it inside a drawer. Or you could take the television and put it inside like a wall unit or a cabinet so that you don't see it. You could also increase the friction of the task. So you could like take the batteries out of the remote after each use, and then it's an extra 5 or 10 seconds to put it in. Maybe that's just enough time for you to think, do I really want to watch something, or am I just doing this mindlessly? You could unplug the TV after each individual use and then only plug it in if you can say the name of the show you want to watch, so you can't like mindlessly browse on Netflix. And I mean, if you really wanted to be extreme about it, you could take the TV off the wall, put it in the closet, and then only take it out when you really wanted to watch something. But the point here, and this is kind of the principle of environment design in general, which is you want to put fewer steps between you and the good behaviors and more steps between you and the bad ones. And imagine the cumulative impact of living in an environment that exposes you to the cues of your positive habits and reduces the cues of your negative habits. It's kind of like you're just gently being nudged in the right direction each day. And that's just one of the ways that you can sort of design a system that leads you into better habits. In my personal life, like there's a moment around 5:15 each night. My wife gets home from work, and either we change into our workout clothes and we go to the gym, or we don't change into our workout clothes and we watch, reruns of The Office and order takeout or whatever. And really the next 2 hours are kind of determined by that decisive moment of whether we change into our workout clothes or not. If we change clothes, then like everything else is going to happen automatically. We're going to drive to the gym. I'll get into the bar. It's already pre-decided basically. So one of the realizations of this, and it comes back to your kind of central question of what are the most important habits to build, or are there ones that ripple into other areas of life? If you can just master maybe 5 or 10 decisive moments throughout the day, these little kind of 2-minute chunks that determine the next block of time, you really only have to focus your attention and energy on that. And the rest of it kind of comes easily. You don't have to do that much if you can master the right moments. It's kind of like judo for your personal habits. You apply the pressure in the right place and everything else kind of falls in line.
Number 4, use the 5R technique by Jay Shetty.
We have 5 senses: sight, smell, touch, taste, and hearing. Now, all of these have different triggers. So if we think about food, you see good food, right? Or let's say you see junk food, you smell that junk food, you know what that junk food tastes like. You don't hear junk food, I don't think anyway. And as soon as that happens, there's a response that goes straight to your mind. Now, what happens in your mind, and as you can see, this is a very accurate drawing of what your mind really looks like inside. But this area of your mind, it reminds you of your past experiences you've had. So when you see those fries, you smell those fries, you see those fries, you touch those fries, it sends a response to your mind. Your mind knows what those fries taste like. It remembers the last time you had them and how good they felt, and straight away goes, yeah, let's have them. And so the mind goes, sure, let's go and plan and create, and now we have those. Now we start to eat that. And that is a recurring habit and cycle in our life. It happens from everything from food that's bad for us, to toxic relationships, through to making bad career decisions. The simple act of reminding ourselves of a positive experience with someone or something allows us to continue that repetition. But now we all know this. We all know that discipline is a core pillar in success. We all know that being able to resist the urges of the mind can help us be more focused. We all don't want to just be carried away, procrastinating and overthinking all day. We also don't want to live in a place where we just keep feeding our bodies and minds with stuff that's not good for it. I know that you feel that. I know that's why you're here. And so there's one key thing that makes a difference. Now give me a moment while I draw this for you. It's pretty much a work of art, so I need some privacy just to get this right. So now, as you can see, the God is the monk mind, the intelligence, the monk mind that stands in between the senses and the mind. So now, for most of us, our monk mind is asleep. Our God is absolutely asleep, or has been lazy for a while, and therefore we've been in this recurring pattern. But this now creates a new conversation. So now every time there's something that you see that you want, or smell, or touch, or taste, or hear, it first goes to the God. And the God may say, well, by the way, you just made a commitment last week that you want to stay off eating sugar. You just made a commitment last week that you were going to work out 3 days a week, right? I'm going to make sure that you stick to that. So even though your eyes are saying that bed looks more comfy than that bench press, we are going to go back. And now it stops you from having that direct conversation with your mind, which is always looking for that monkey mind and the easy way out. So you've now added a level of conversation that's stronger. But you're like, but Jay, I mean, is that willpower? Is that internal strength? Where does that God, where does that monk mind come from? So the monk mind comes from the following principle. So the way we strengthen the monk mind and the God inside our minds so that we don't just give in to the temptations and the urges of the mind is through the 4 R's format. So these 4 R's have to be done in order, and when they're executed effectively, you will know that your God and your monk mind is getting stronger. The first R is reason. You need a really powerful powerful reason for why you're making this new change in your life. If you don't have a deep, profound reason in your life, it'll be really, really difficult. I'll give you an example. If someone says that they want to quit drinking alcohol just because they want to do it, it's different from someone saying, I want to quit drinking alcohol because I want to save my family. I want to keep my family together, and this habit is ruining our interactions, and so I really want to kick this habit. Notice the difference in reason, right? Even if we want to learn something, it's like, oh, I want to learn to play an instrument. Why? Oh, just because I feel like it. Or I want to learn to play an instrument because I want to propose by playing the piano. Notice the depth of reason. Reason is the first R that's needed to strengthen the God, and it's almost like the God building its foundation. So the monk mind is based on creating a strong sense of reason. Now, what I want you to do is choose that one thing you're trying to change in your life right now, and I want you to ask yourself, what's your real reason for wanting to change it? What is your deep reason for wanting to change it? Now, our reasons can also be negative or positive. A negative reason can be revenge, or a negative reason can be getting our own back or showing people, right? It's kind of like that look at me now kind of feeling. And we know that in the long term, that won't satisfy us because, again, we're seeking validation from someone feeling differently about us. But our reason being for people that we love, our reason being for ourselves, our reason being a really heartfelt, deep internal belief that if we don't change this, it's not going to be good for us or the people we love. And so the first R is having a really strong reason. So I'm just going to write that down. So reason, putting a check next to reason. The second R that we need in our life is research. Your reason is given more ammunition and depth through good research. What I mean by that is you may pick up the phone to a coach. You may speak to someone who's already mastered that habit. You may focus on reading about books and watching documentaries and listening to podcasts about that subject. The more you absorb information, the more likely you are to create transformation. Remember that. The more you absorb information, the more you're likely to create transformation, because now you have so much research that is consistently convincing the God to help convince the senses. Every time you want something or see something or chase something, the God can say, but do you remember when we read that study? Do you remember when we watched that documentary? Do you remember when you spoke to that coach? And all of a sudden you have so much more reasoning power when you research. So the second step is research, and the best way are books, podcasts, and people, right? Books, podcasts, and people are the best forms of research. When you want to create a habit change in your life, make sure that what you listen to, what you read, and what you speak about is about the subject you're trying to grow in. When you immerse yourself in that way, you will see maximum impact in your life. So the second R is research. The third R is repetition. Repetition. If we don't consistently make this a priority in our life, it's just not going to happen. We have to repeat that action. So we have to prioritize around it. And this is something I say often, right? If you really want to make something a priority in your life, it has to be a small step and a big priority. Often what we try and do is we try and change every area of our life, and then naturally nothing changes. But the better thing to do is choose one area and make it your top priority. So if you want to start going to the gym, make that the one big thing you're going to achieve that day, and set a time that you can actually make it. Don't set it at an awkward time. I know someone who literally used to struggle working out. So instead of that, what she would do is when she would roll off the bed, she would have her yoga mat and all of her gym equipment laid out right near her bed, so she had no excuse. Right? It was the first thing she saw in the morning, and so she could naturally start exercising straight away. That also is true for not triggering the senses, right? Repetition also includes, if you're trying to stay off sugar, if you just don't have any sugar items in your closet or in your cupboard or in the fridge, then there's no chance that you're going to have it. So you can actually save yourself by removing it from the trigger of the senses. So that is repetition. The fourth R is responsibility. right? You want to be able to do this with someone. You want to feel like you're growing with someone. That's why having a tribe or a community or a group of people that are trying to aim for the same thing means you're more likely to get there. You know, if you're trying to start a new habit like cycling more, if you're cycling with a group of people, now guess what? You're not just relying on your motivation, you're relying on 10 other people to motivate you as well. If you're going to the gym with a friend, responsibility and accountability makes you more likely to get to your destination. And there's a fifth R actually that I just thought of, and it's called reward. You want to make sure that in any habit change there is some reward, and a reward is making sure you recognize what amazing growth you're making, that you're taking a moment to see, look how far I've come. Because our mind again tricks us and always goes, look how far you have to go. It's really important that you remind yourself of how far you've come, how much you've grown, the difference you've made. So the fifth and final R is reward.
And I'm going to give you one bonus clip that I think you'll really enjoy. Before I do, I want you to see this book right here, the 50-Day Success Journal. If you have any goal in mind or know anybody who has a goal in mind and don't know how to go about it, how to write it down, how to achieve it, this journal right here, which I created, is very, very powerful. Highly recommend it. I have a link to it down in the description below if you want to check it out in achieving any goal that you put out in the universe. Next up is Reprogram Your Mind by Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Habit is a redundant set of automatic, unconscious thoughts, behaviors, and emotions that's acquired through repetition. A habit is when you've done something so many times that the body now knows how to do it better than the mind. So now the person running through the same routine every single day is on autopilot, and their body's now dragging them into a predictable future based on what they did in the past, and they've lost their free will to a set of programs, right? So now you have the familiar past and you have the predictable future. Those are knowns. So the only place then, reasonably, where the unknown exists is the sweet spot of the generous present moment. That is when the body and mind are free from those conditions. So along with those emotions that influence the same thoughts, people start becoming more judgmental. They start becoming more impatient. They start becoming more entitled. They start getting more afraid, more anxious, more depressed. And now the body is literally being depleted of energy because it's believing that it's living in an emergency situation. And in emergency, you tap all of the body's resources for some threat, whether it's real or imagined. And so then when you're releasing all of these chemicals, we are literally drawing the body's life force and turning it into chemistry. And so for the short term, that's cool. But the arousal that's created from those stress hormones is a rush of energy. And so then people use the problems and the conditions in their life to reaffirm their conditioning or their addiction to that emotion. And in a sense, they become addicted to the life they don't even like. And this is why change is so hard. So then when a person makes up their mind to change and they say, okay, I'm not going to say I can't, I'm not going to judge another person, I'm not going to blame, I'm not going to complain, I'm not going to make excuses, I'm not going to be a victim, I'm not going to talk trash about anybody, I'm just going to stop. Well, that works out really well for the first couple hours. Then the body's saying you're out of schedule. You normally at 8 in the morning, you're getting traffic and you're angry. Then at 11 o'clock, you check your emails and you're really judgmental and frustrated. And the body's saying, oh, well, you've been doing this for the last 20 years. You're just going to stop today. So now the body, which has been conditioned emotionally to be the mind, wants to return back to its familiar territory, to the known. So the body starts influencing the mind. And it says, come on. This is a good time to judge. Come on, this is a good time to suffer. It's your ex's fault. It's the government's fault. It's it's the weather, or the news, whatever it is. And if we accept, believe, and surrender to that thought without analyzing it, it slips by and it begins to program the autonomic nervous system to make those pharmacy of chemicals. And so that's when the person makes the same choice, does the same thing, creates the same experience just for that familiar feeling. Okay, I'll complain just so I can feel suffering. Then they'd rather be unhappy than step into the unknown, to step into possibility. And the hardest part about that process, first of all, is not making the same choices you did the day before. And here's the payoff. You got to stay conscious. and not go unconscious. And it turns out that 95% of the time we're unconscious. So if you're going to stay conscious, then there's an element that also requires a certain amount of awareness or energy. And you got to step outside of that unconscious state. So the thoughts that they're thinking are slipping by their awareness unnoticed because they're hardwired in their brain, because they've been saying, I can't, it's too hard, my life will never change, it's someone else's fault. Those thoughts have consequences in the body. So then if a person then becomes conscious of those unconscious thoughts, becomes aware of how they speak and how they act, and they notice how they're feeling, they're no longer the program. They're the consciousness outside the program, and that's the first step to change. So when you're distracted by your environment and you got your cell phone and you're tweeting and you're Instagramming and Facebooking, whatever people do, you're distracted by that feeling. But I now know that if you take a person and you say, okay, close your eyes, sit in the silence of any external stimulation, remove the environment, sit your body down like an animal. Body is the animal. Tell it to stay. I'm going to feed you. You can check your cell phone. You can shower. You can have your coffee. But when I say, and so then here comes the challenge, right? So, and then if you say then you're not going to live in the familiar past or predictable future, you're not going to think about how long you've been meditating, what you got to do. You labor for that present moment. People think when they do this that they're doing something wrong because there's such discomfort that comes with it. But they're in the unknown. They're actually doing it right. People say, I think I'm meditating wrong. I always say, oh, no, you're doing it right. Because when you notice that your body wants to get up and check your cell phone or have a cup of coffee, and you become aware that it's on autopilot and wants to do that, and you say, come on over here, and you return it back to the present moment, you're executing a will now that's greater than the program. And if the person wants to just get angry while they're sitting there, there's an arousal, and they notice the body is amping up and revving up, and they settle it back down. Now they're telling the body it's no longer the mind, that they're the mind. Now, we've researched this, and it's tedious in the beginning at first because David is fighting Goliath. But if you keep practicing it, just like training an animal, sooner or later the body acquiesces. Sooner or later the body is trained to a new mind, and when that happens, there's a liberation of energy. The body goes from particle to wave, from matter to energy, and there goes that emotion, literally liberated from the body as energy. So the person who has the strong emotion to some circumstance in their life, and they're working on lowering the volume of that emotion, the more they lower the volume of that emotion, the more they're going to take their attention off that person and problem, and they're going to take their power back. There's going to be a break in their attention from that circumstance. And now they build their own field. And now there's energy to heal. Now there's energy to create a new life. Now there's energy for the mystical moment because they've overcome their old personality self. So I think, it's not like thinking positively. That's not the message.
Yeah.
It's overcoming until we become somebody else. And when that occurs and the person starts thinking differently and they start acting differently and they start feeling differently, they're a new personality. And they start seeing those synchronicities and serendipities. Now, crossing that river of change, the creative process now gets exciting because what thoughts do you want to fire and wire in your brain? What kind of attention and intention do you want to place so that that becomes the loudest voice in your head? And if you keep practicing it, the hardware becomes a software program, and it'll say, Jay, you can do anything. Jay, you live in no time and accomplish everything. Jay, you're unlimited. You just got to hang with it. On the other side of this is greatness. Whatever you want to program in there, you get to program in there.
And before you go, I'm going to leave you with one more quote. The only proper way to eliminate bad habits is to replace them with good ones, by Jerome Hines. So what good habits can you use to replace your bad habits? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you want to check out any more inspiring videos like this, you could click up here or down here, and I'll see you in the next video. Have an amazing day.